Hello, everyone. We are actually back with episode 2 of this little How to Build a Save series. First of all, little disclaimer, sorry it took me a while to get this video out, but I've been busy. I am a human and I have responsibilities, but I am back. So, if you are also back, I'm guessing you're still determined to build a save because you clicked on this episode and it's episode 2. And if you didn't see episode 1, I mean, you don't have to, but maybe you want to watch that first. But if you're just maybe clicking on this video because you miss me and you like my voice, all I have to say to that is thank you. But anyway, episode 2. For this episode, we're focusing on one of the most important features when it comes to a save file, or most of them, and that's builds. Builds are an essential part to a save. I mean, of course, you need places for your Sims to live and visit, but it is also what helps make a save fun. So, how many times have you started a save telling yourself, oh, I'm going to start a legacy? Or, oh my gosh, I'm so ready to play with the sim I spent hours creating, only for you to play for an hour and never return again. Speaking from personal experience, this happens because one, this game requires a lot of imagination for a fun time. Because again, at its base, Sims 4 is pretty much a sandbox game. But number two, the worlds are just kind of boring, to be honest. I mean, especially the lots. Not only are most of these places EA builds, which I think that says enough. At that point, don't need to say more. But anyway, you've most likely been to and seen all of the lots the game has to offer because this game is pretty old, running on maybe more than a decade, so things can get pretty stale pretty quickly when it comes to the lots in this game. So, with that being said, this episode we're talking about builds and how to go about doing them in your save. Again, if you're doing a save file, there's a lot of different ways you can go about this. Maybe you do want to rebuild everything in your game. Maybe you just want to redo the townies. Maybe you just want to plop things down from the gallery. All of that is fine. This is more so for those of you out there who are looking at either rebuilding a save from the bottom up or just replacing the lots with some you found elsewhere. So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. Before we get into the fun stuff, I just want to remind you of some useful tools that I mentioned last episode, but these are specifically when it comes to, again, working on the builds for your save. So first things first, we have the Google Sheets or Excel method. So as I mentioned before, I know, maybe it sounds ridiculous to create a whole Excel sheet to organize your save, but trust me, it is very helpful to have something to help you organize the builds. It will help you make sure you have a good balance of lots from community to residentials. It will help you keep track of how many pools you have or how many restaurants or if you need to add more homes for single families. And again, it might not seem like something you would want to consider, but if you're building a really big save, if you're focusing on more than one world, I would highly suggest you take the time to make one or download some type of save file organizer from a creator of some sorts. The second tool I would suggest, and this one is actually a mod, it's Twisted Mexie's tool and Better Build and Buy mods. And as I said once before, mods aren't not necessary when it comes to building a save. You don't need it. You won't fail if you don't have any mods in your game. But if you enjoy building and plan on doing it for your save, I would strongly suggest looking into Twisted Mexie's tool and Better Build and Buy. There are so many benefits like being able to add things off lot, easy access to debug because it does a good job of organizing all of the objects in a game, and not only debug, but you get access to locked items as well. And then last but not least, the major feature when it comes to tools specifically are the in-depth manipulation tools. So you can do a lot, like raise objects, you can rotate them any which way. Again, you can move them off lot, you can flip them, you can dice them, you can do everything, basically. So those are the tools that I would suggest you guys consider if you're going into the building portion of your save. As we discussed in episode 1, it's important to start gathering some inspiration before you dive into choosing or building your lots. After that, now you should start thinking about what lots you want in your game. Ideally, you're going to be playing in the save once it's done, right? or you maybe, I don't know, you just build this and give up on it. Please don't do that, okay? Please don't do that. Anyway, I suggest thinking about your playstyle before you think of builds. So, for example, if you're into family gameplay, you're probably going to want to have some fun, family-friendly lots that you can take your Sims of all ages to, such as parks, arcades, and restaurants. If you're more so a one Sim type of person, then you probably want to include lots for your Sims to mingle at, like bars, nightclubs, or even museums. Basically, really thinking about the type of gameplay you enjoy will help you narrow down what type of lots you want to include in your save. But whatever you decide to include in the end, I strongly suggest you make sure it is balanced. So I know I said it's important for you to consider your type of gameplay and what type of lots you prefer, but at the end of the day, it's still a good idea to make sure your world has a bit of variety when it comes to lots. And that's what I did when it came to my doo-doo save file. Personally, I mostly visit restaurants, parks, and clubs, not really a big fan of museums or lounges, but I really push myself to include lots I don't frequent that much, because it's nice to have those options, and having various lots to explore will encourage you to get your Sims out of the house. Hopefully, I mean. But again, just having that little bit of motivation when it comes to a diverse set of lots in your game is a bonus and something you should really strive for when it comes to making a save, whether it's a personal one or one you plan on sharing with others. Not everyone that plays The Sims is a builder, and that's okay. You don't have to be. Because luckily, the Sims team gave us this thing called the gallery. I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that. Anyway, yes, it's buggy. Yes, it's annoying to navigate. And yes, there's a lot of issues when it comes to the gallery. But it is still a pretty useful resource. So once you have a list or some ideas on what type of lots you want to include, make your way to the gallery. Gallery has a search feature that allows you to sift through thousands upon thousands upon thousands of user-created builds. And when it's working, it has a filter feature to help you narrow your search even more. So in order to find the builds you're looking for, I have a few suggestions. 1. Use hashtags. If you're looking for a build of a specific style or from a certain world, you can use key terms to help you find it. For example, if I'm looking for a more Victorian style mansion, I can search for that build by typing in hashtag Victorian or hashtag Victorian mansion or hashtag Victorian home. Any variety of those hashtags will probably work and help you find something or help you get started in your search. So keep in mind though, you might not find exactly what you're looking for, but the whole purpose of using hashtags, again, is to help you get close to that end result. And remember, you do have filters, if they work, to help you get even closer. Suggestion number 2, use key terms. Most people in the gallery give their builds pretty straightforward in generic names. For example, a family home, cute cottage, or spooky mansion, or any of the other types you can think of when it comes to your build. So if you start your search using those key terms, that describes your ideal build, you might have some luck in finding it. Whichever option you go with, if they work, you can use the filters to really zero in on your ideal builds. What type of lots are you looking for? What size lot are you focusing on? What packs should be filtered out? Those are some of the filters that you can play around with to help you get closer to your ideal build. So personally, once again, I want to let it be known that the gallery is pretty buggy, and honestly, I'm not a fan of using the gallery. As I mentioned, it doesn't work the best, but I wouldn't strike it out as an option for finding builds. I think it's the best option to find more specific builds because, again, there's a lot of builds out there from a lot of talented creators. So I would suggest trying it. You might have to work a little bit hard for it. But yeah, with that being said, if you're also not a fan of the gallery or you're just not really interested in searching through thousands upon thousands of builds, might I suggest the Sims community is everywhere. There's Sembler, Simstagram, Twitter. I don't even know, do you actually call Twitter Switter, or does it have some type of funny nickname? I don't know. And YouTube. Let's not forget about YouTube. Anyway, on these platforms, you can find some really talented builders. In the same way you look on the gallery, you can also apply those methods to other platforms. For example, simply searching Sims 4 Family Home will give you some nice results on YouTube, or hashtag base game can introduce you to some builds on Tumblr or Twitter. Also, if you happen to find a creator you really like, then you can just mass download a bunch of their stuff, which will guarantee your save has a pretty cohesive look. I'll admit, you probably have to do a bit more work if you're finding builds this way. This method is more like a curation project because while you might be able to search for and find what you're looking for most of the time, it can feel like finding a needle in a haystack because you don't really have too many, tools to work with when you're searching through Tumblr or Twitter. You're mostly relying on hoping you stumble across something. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Anyway, whatever you decide to do, please make sure you credit the original creator because while yes, this is just a video game, we are just playing with pixels, people still put a lot of work in making these lots. And it only takes literally less than 30 seconds to credit them. If you're confused on how to credit a creator when it comes to using their builds, most of the time, you can just put their handle in the bio. That usually satisfies it. Or if you're extra kind, you can ask. But I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone, but I'm pretty sure the general consensus is in order to give proper credit, just put their names in the bio or maybe in the description of the save or the post discussing the save if you plan on sharing it with other people. Okay, so if you don't really care to build your own lots, then you can just skip to the end, or let's see, what else do I talk about in this video? You can skip to maybe I don't know, I'll just put in a timestamp, I'll just post it because I don't know. Okay, anyway, where was I? What was I talking about? Okay, yeah, so basically if you're not interested in building, just skip to this time right here. Hopefully I put it in. So for those of you who are or just want to learn more, stick around. There's a few things we're going to talk about. I'm not necessarily going to tell you how to build or give you a tutorial on it because that's just not what we're here for. I'm just giving tips, but I will tell you how to get the most out of your builds, starting with maximizing your lots. Multi-purpose lots, something many of us dream about when it comes to this game, because again, there's not many lots in this game. A lot of the worlds don't really have much space to work with, but also loading screens.
Move this man!
The number one reason why you probably stay on lot and you don't take your Sims anywhere Unfortunately, we don't have multi-purpose lots in the game, and honestly, we probably never will. That's up there with cars and ferries. But then again, I don't know, maybe we'll get ferries soon. But some lots can be manipulated to function as multi-purpose. And I'm going to give you a few of my favorite examples and go-tos, starting with number 1, gym and spa combo. So if you set a lot as a gym, you can place down the spa day items such as that little chair where you can get a manicure or pedicure, yoga mats, and massage tables. And although the lot is not set as a spa, NPC workers will still spawn for those items. So you have people actually working those stations even though it's set as a gym. And since it's still set as a gym, that means you also still get the NPC gym trainers to spawn on the lot. So instead of building a separate gym and spa and taking up 2 lots, you can just combine it all into one. So that's something to consider if you're trying to save space and not have to worry about jumping through multiple loading screens to switch from one lot to another. Number 2, we have the restaurants and bar combo. So when restaurants function as they should, they, in my personal opinion, are some of the best lots in the game. And what makes them even better is the ability to add a bar inside them. Sure, you can be boring and add one inside the restaurant, but why not create a separate building next door? So bartenders will automatically spawn on the lot, and diners will frequent the bar before, during, or sometimes after their meal. So a bit of warning, because you know how the Sims are, you know they kind of have minds of their own. You might notice some Sims getting up and going next door to the bar for a bit, but personally, I don't find it too annoying. Because usually your Sims that you're playing, they will autonomously do it. It's just the other Sims in the restaurant who you might notice doing that. With this trick, I've created lots to have restaurants with a quaint little bar next door, a whole pier with a restaurant and bowling alley bar next door. So next time, don't just settle for an all-in-one building. Consider splitting it up in order to give your Sims more options in terms of places to visit. Because again, that goal when you're building your save, you want to have interesting places for your Sims to visit, so you want to try to get creative with your lots. But also, if you're not a fan of loading screens, this is a good way to, again, maximize the lots and make sure you have a lot going on. And as I said before, they actually run pretty well. The pier I built in San Sequoia, to me personally, I feel like it runs like a dream, the best it can. Number 3, community spaces. Remember this guy? Community spaces. This lot type came with eco lifestyle, and its purpose is to serve as a place for Sims to help make their communities better. Based on the community action voting system, you can change this lot into 3 other sublots, which are community garden, marketplace, and makerspace. But for me, I like using this lot type in my game to create a little strip, if you will. So for example, going back to Doo-Doo, I created a downtown area in Willow Creek, and in order to get that downtown feel and really have it feel like there's a lot going on, I used a community space lot. As you can see, the lot is divided up into separate buildings, with most of them being functional thanks to the lot type. So I have a flea market set up in the first floor of one building, I have a candle shop on the floor above it, a community action center as well, where Sims can go and work on their public speaking and debate skills. And thanks to the club feature, I even have an office space. So if I create a club, people will occupy that building as well. So thanks to the lot type, using it as a community space, Sims will spawn on the lot and automatically use most of the items. Because again, if you're not familiar with the community space, some of the requirements for it are putting down a lot of skill building items and the market tables and stalls and things like that. So Sims will automatically spawn at those objects and do those activities. So it's a great way of making the lot feel less empty, but also still maximizing your space. And just a reminder, you don't have to do this for community spaces. You can simply use it as a lot that provides a lot of skill building activities. You don't have to split it up into multiple buildings. This is just a little suggestion for you guys, because community spaces, they really are an underrated lot in this game. And if you take advantage of it and let your creativity run wild, there's really a lot you can do with it. So don't sleep on them. Try to play around and see what you can get away with. That's my number one building tip when it comes to this game. Number 4, retail. Retail lots are something many of us barely use in our game, which is a shame, to be honest, because I honestly think they're pretty great. If you like having a little bit of realism in your game, you can utilize this lot type and add just that to your game. For example, you can create a grocery store or market for your Sims to stock their fridges. And P.S., if you utilize simple living lot trait to really enhance the gameplay, because then your Sim is forced to go out to the grocery store. They can't just magically pull out food out of the refrigerator. Also, if you have a rags to riches Sims, or if that's more your style of gameplay, you can create a furniture store to, really show that progress they're making, because when they go to the furniture store, they have to pick out the furniture. It really gives the vibes of we're moving on up. Shout out to the Jeffersons. How many of you actually know about that show? Okay, anyway. Or another option when it comes to retail, your Sims maybe, are getting married and preparing for their wedding. So you can actually create a bridal store for your brides to be, to have their big bridezilla moment and dress shop with their bridal party. Those are just some ideas to consider when it comes to retail lots. A lot of the items in this game you can set for sale, so there's a lot of cool things you can do in terms of the retail system. But a little warning, like a lot of features in this game, the retail system can be buggy. I'm going to be honest, but adding them into your game, adding those retail lots might be worth the headache. So I highly suggest you consider adding them into your game, playing around, again, seeing what you can get away with, what might work when it comes to using these retail lots, because they will give your Sims, again, new lots to explore, as well as gameplay, and really help elevate the experience for you. Number 5, we have clubs. Clubs. People are catching on now. Clubs are one of the best and still kind of underrated features in this game, but as I said, it's starting to get up there. Clubs are not just a way to get your Sim socializing, but it's a great way to add functionality to those lots that seem to be missing it. With clubs, you're allowed to set hangouts for your groups, so maybe you decide it would be cute to create a little office or co-working space for your freelancer Sim. But then you wonder, how the heck will this function? And here's how. If you create a club for, let's say, a group of Sims working in tech and engineer careers, you can set their club hangout to that lot. And with the club feature, you can assign them activities to do, such as programming, drinking coffee, browsing the web, or any other activities you see fit. That way, not only will Sims spawn in this office, but they'll actually use the items there. So it's a good way to get them in and have them look like they're actually doing stuff, That's always a plus when it comes to this game. They're not just standing there NPCing. Another example you might want to consider when it comes to creating clubs is maybe a soccer team. So you might build a park that has some type of faux soccer field, and you can have a group of kids be a part of the club. They go out there and play soccer. Or maybe you have a club full of kids and adult if you create a daycare. That way you have a functional daycare. You can also go for a dance club. So you might have created a little dance studio downtown and you want Sims to actually use it. So create a club for that and make the activity dancing. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot of examples or ideas out there when it comes to clubs in order to make your game feel more alive, and again, really utilize those spaces that at first seem to be kind of dumb because they don't really have any functional purpose. But once you add the clubs in, you'll see that it actually can work. So all you have to do is, again, create a club, add some Sims, add some activities, and set their hangout. And if there is a specific area you want them to access, and only them to access, you can travel to that lot with a member of the club and designate the door as a door hangout. And therefore, they will be the only ones that can access that building. I've already started utilizing this trick in my save, and I plan on doing it more, and I strongly suggest you give it a try as well. A tale as old as time. Which one do you value most as a simmer? Or better yet, why do we need to choose one over the other? When you build your first lot for your save, it's important not only to think about the aesthetic you want to go for, but also its playability. While yes, it can be tempting to allow your personal taste to take over or create some gorgeous, Tumblr worthy build, you may find yourself leaning too far into style over substance. And a similar warning can be given to those focused too much on functionality. You may not care too much about the aesthetic of your builds or how pretty they look, but over time, trust me, it's going to be noticeable. Your basic box might get the job done for now, but as you keep playing in the save over time, years after years, however long, you might find yourself growing bored of it. But again, why do we have to choose one over the other? We don't. We can strike a good balance. And a good way to go about achieving that balance is to focus on the Sims, not yourself. The Sims are the one living there. They are the ones that have to move around the space, to live in the space, to become the space. So when you are focusing on building and decorating their homes, try to do it with their styles and personality in mind. I mean, yes, it's your game. You can do whatever you want. If you're more into modern and that's what you want to do, go for it. But again, this is just a tip to help you better achieve that balance of aesthetic and functionality. So I would say don't focus too much on what's pretty, but instead on what fits the sim. You'll find not only do your builds have more character and diversity because you're allowing yourself to branch out more and explore the different personalities of these sims, but they still end up having some sort of aesthetic to it. So it's just more of a natural one because you're not contriving it, you're not trying to force the issue, you're just kind of letting the build tell you what it is in a way that makes sense. I feel like that sounds kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, I'll just put it here. Next, when you build with the sim in mind, you're less likely to go crazy with the clutter. I'll be the first to say I love clutter. It's fun to do, I'm all for it, clutter, 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 but we have to draw the line somewhere, guys. So if you're building for a sim and really trying to infuse their personality in the space, it forces you to be more intentional about what you put in the build. Versus if you're just focused on what you want and what you think others want, you might find yourself doing too much. So that's just something to consider when you're building your builds. And the same can be applied to community lots as well. Just think about the type of people that live in the area, the type of people that might be visiting this place. Don't think too much about the aesthetic or focus only on the more functional aspects of it. Just focus on the sim and those in the community. Because I feel like personally, from building Doo and having that in mind, it really helped me create builds that are not doing too much and are not doing too little. That have character, but also they still run pretty well in the game and they don't feel too suffocating. So I encourage you to maybe try that out as you are building your save. But with all that being said, striking that balance between aesthetic and functional builds is easier said than done. Also, if you don't care about balance, that's completely fine. Because the one thing to remember when it comes to this series, you can do whatever the heck you want. It's just personally, I believe that's an important key to a good save file, is having a balanced build, which will result in a better build, which will result in a better save file. Before we wrap things up, I have a few random things I want to share with you guys when it comes to building. So first of all, when you start building for your save, really try to push yourself to go for different styles. Doing so will give you a bit more variety in the save, because again, that's key. If you want a good, enjoyable save file, variety is very important. But it would also help keep things fresh, because as you guys know, as simmers, sometimes it's easy to fall off the wagon and leave your save file in the closet, and we don't want that. So again, if you're just building one-story cottages or cookie cutter suburbans or whatever it is the whole time, you're going to get burned out. Like, it's going to happen. Now, I'm not saying you have to jump from cottages to modern condos and switch up your aesthetic or your preference in that way. I'm just saying try to switch it up a bit wherever you can, Do what you're most comfortable with, but also don't just stay in that box the whole time, because at the end, I feel like you'll appreciate having a little bit of variety when it comes to your saves. So if you're focusing on building, let's say for example, a Midwestern town, don't just build ranch homes all over the places. There's a lot that you can do with the Midwestern style. That's all I mean when it comes to, venturing out and trying different styles. Secondly, again, variety. Even if you only play with singles or families, make sure you're creating builds for various types of sims. I find the best types of saves, even if you're not building a personal one, are those that have a mixture of builds. So while you might only be into family gameplay, it's still important to think about your single sims. Because at one point, if you're playing in the save as a legacy, or maybe you decide one day you want to switch it up, you're going to need lots for whatever sim you end up playing, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. Thirdly, don't feel like you have to build everything. I'm a crazy person, so I did just that for my save. 98% of the builds I did myself. The rest I just haven't touched yet because that save file is incomplete. But you don't have to do that. Okay, I know there's a lot of videos out here of people just blowing up saves and building them from the ground up, but don't feel inclined, okay? You can still make a really good save without having to lift a virtual hammer and nail. So if you only want to build a few lots here and there, you can do that. Or if you just want to put all your builds down from the gallery, that is fine too. Because you never want to put yourself in a position where you're forcing yourself to do something. That is the first step to an incomplete save, and that's what we're trying to avoid here. I'm trying to help you finish your saves, okay? So always think about what you're comfortable with doing. But with that being said, don't be afraid to kind of venture out. Next, but most importantly, play test your builds. I mean, this is pretty obvious, but also I understand I'm lazy sometimes and I don't play tests. Well, I play tests for doo-doo, okay? I did that. But when it comes to my more personal saves, I don't. But even if, you don't plan on sharing the save or you're like, nah, I'm good. Trust me. You'll thank yourself for play testing before you start actually playing in this save. You don't want to show up to a community lot only to find out nothing works. So it's just going to piss you off, especially if it's some type of big event you're planning for your sim. So whenever you're done building a lot or you placed one down from the gallery, just take like a minute or two to play test it. It honestly doesn't take that long. Don't wait until the very end where you have to speed run and play test everything. It's just going to feel like torture. Lastly, when you create a build, save it to your gallery. As you guys know, there's a lot that can go horribly wrong in this game. We've all heard of the horror stories of people losing 5-year-old save files, having saves corrupted and beyond repair. So, in order to save yourself from such heartbreak, please, well, for one, please back up your saves, okay? Do that first. Like, create as many backups as you can, save them in a Google Drive folder, save them in an external hard drive, save them on your desktop, multiple backups. Do it now. And secondly, please save your lots to your library as well. I'm not talking about uploading them to the gallery, I'm talking about actually saving them to your game library. Because if something ever happened to the lot, like let's say corruption, or your computer blows up, or I don't know, something crazy happens, if you upload the lot to the library before all of that, before you start playing in it, if those things do happen, you can always go back to the library and pull it out, and it will still work just as it did when you originally uploaded it. Again, those are just random tips to keep in mind while building for your save. You were so excited to tackle the save and had so many ideas, my sweet, sweet summer child, to make it the best you can. But after placing down a few lots and finishing some builds, you're starting to second guess. First of all, that's okay. That's human nature. But also, remember, we ain't raised no quitter around here. So let me help you out with that. Breaks are important. I feel like that's enough to be said, but I'm gonna keep going. If you feel yourself getting fatigued, take a break. If you force the issue, you might get to a place where you find this project boring or you even hate it. Don't let it get there. Don't. Instead, I would strongly suggest a few things. One of them being watching save file videos. So as you guys know, there's currently a big trend in the Sims community where everyone and their mom is building a save. So there's a lot of people out there for you to watch and follow. They can be a good way to give you ideas or just motivate you when you feel like giving up. Because it's nice to have that bit of push, even if it's a virtual one, to kind of encourage you to keep going when it comes to building this save. Another idea is sharing your progress with other people. So I think the most helpful thing for me when it came to making my save and actually getting it done was sharing it online, whether it was through Tumblr or Reddit, or if you're not comfortable with doing that, maybe you just talk to someone. You know, maybe you have friends or maybe you have people in your life who care, even if they don't play The Sims. Or you can always talk to me in the comments. I actually am very, very interactive. I love listening to you guys. So that's also an option. Just sharing it there with other people, you know, seeing their excitement as well or seeing them respond to it. It helps you keep going. It honestly does. Another thing you can do to help fight the fatigue or prevent you from quitting is actually playing your save. So even if it's not done, even if it's only like 20% done, sometimes jumping into live mode and exploring what you have can help you see that light at the end of the tunnel. Because it's hard to really process how things are going when you're constantly in build mode or cast or just placing down lots from the gallery one by one. But when you jump into live mode and you have a sim walking around and exploring what you've done so far, that can really help. That can really be the motivation you need, that little pick me up. And lastly, and probably the most obvious suggestion, is work on something else. Whether that's something Sims or non-Sims related, just put your energy towards something else for a bit. That's what you would do if you're experiencing burnout in any other field or activity. Just take a break and work on something else. Your save will be there. But with that being said, it is really all about having self-motivation and perseverance to finish. I can give you all the tips in the world. You know, I don't know, come into your house and help you build the save, but at the end of the day, it's all about if this is something you want to do. Big or small, saves are a lot of work, especially when it comes to building the lots and putting it all together. So I would suggest only giving yourself what you can handle and hold yourself accountable. please, please, please do not look at what others are doing and start comparing yourself. That's just going to make you feel worse. Instead, if you feel the need to look at what others are doing, just let it serve as encouragement. Let it be motivation, seeing that other people are able to finish this project, and so can you as well. And again, when you are out there looking at all the saves and work that has been done, don't feel like you have to do just as much. It's okay if you're just focusing on redoing the Sims or maybe just adding little things here or there. At the end of the day, building a save should be fun and an enjoyable process. It should be something that you're excited to do, something you can't wait to load up on your computer. You never want it to start feeling like work or having it stress you out, or yeah, just you don't want those negative feelings. So if it starts to feel that way, take a step back and take a breather. But once you get it together, once you're back on, I guess, more comfy vibes, it's on you to come back to it. All right, so hopefully you're now ready to tackle the lots of your save, whether you plan on scouring the gallery or the interwebs for builds, or you feel confident enough to do the building yourself. You're now one step closer in finishing your save. Woo! That's me clapping, by the way. But also, I feel like I covered a good bit about building in this save, but I also feel like I definitely could share more and go into more depth on some things. So if you guys have any questions or something you want me to discuss in a video, I mean, no promises on the video, but questions I do like to answer and read comments. So yeah, please feel free to let me know down below. Thanks. Or you can always hit me up on Tumblr too, or in the stream. Okay, anyway, I guess the next thing to discuss when building a save file is creating the Sims and lore. Because along with the builds, the Sims you choose to occupy your save with will determine how much enjoyment and playability you can actually get out of this thing. So, with that being said, I'll see you guys then, and I'm gonna wave goodbye now. Thanks for watching, everyone. Goodbye. Hope this was helpful.